Mark Twain Selected Works. Some Learned Fables for Good Old Boys and Girls, in 3 parts. Part first, How the Animals of the Wood Sent Out a Scientific Expedition. Once the creatures of the forest held a great convention and appointed a commission consisting of the most illustrious scientists among them to go forth, clear beyond the forest and out into the unknown and unexplored world, to verify the truth of the matters already taught in their schools and colleges, and also to make discoveries. It was the most imposing enterprise of the kind the nation had ever embarked in. True, the government had once sent Dr. Bullfrog with a picked crew to hunt for a northwesterly passage through the swamp to the right-hand corner of the wood, and had since sent out many expeditions to hunt for Dr. Bullfrog. But they never could find him, and so government finally gave him up and ennobled his mother to show its gratitude for the services her son had rendered to science. And once government sent Sir Grasshopper to hunt for the sources of the rill that emptied into the swamp, and afterwards sent out many expeditions to hunt for Sir Grass, and at last they were successful. They found his body, but if he had discovered the sources meantime, he did not let on. So government acted handsomely by deceased, and many envied his funeral. But these expeditions were trifles compared with the present one, for this one comprised among its servants the very greatest among the learned, and besides, it was to go to the utterly unvisited regions believed to lie beyond the mighty forest, as we have remarked before. How the members were banqueted and glorified and talked about. Everywhere that one of them showed himself, straightway there was a crowd to gape and stare at him. Finally they set off, and it was a sight to see the long procession of dry land tortoises heavily laden with savants, scientific instruments, glowworms, and fireflies for signal service, provisions, ants and tumblebugs to fetch and carry and delve, spiders to carry the surveying chain and do other engineering duty, and so forth and so on. And after the tortoises came another long train of ironclads, stately and spacious mud turtles for marine transportation service. And from every tortoise and every turtle flaunted a flaming gladiolus or other splendid banner. At the head of the column, a great band of bumblebees, mosquitoes, katydids, and crickets discoursed martial music, and the entire train was under the escort and protection of 12 picked regiments of the army worm. At the end of 3 weeks, the expedition emerged from the forest and looked upon the great unknown world. Their eyes were greeted with an impressive spectacle. A vast level plain stretched before them, watered by a sinuous stream, and beyond there towered up against the sky a long and lofty banner of some kind, they did not know what. The tumblebug said he believed it was simply land tilted up on its edge, because he knew he could see trees on it. But Professor Snail and the others said, "You are hired to dig, sir, that is all. We need your muscle, not your brains. When we want your opinion on scientific matters, we will hasten to let you know. Your coolness is intolerable, too, loafing about here meddling with august matters of learning when the other laborers are pitching camp. Go along and help handle the baggage. The tumblebug turned on his heel, uncrushed, unabashed, observing to himself, "If it isn't land tilted up, let me die the death of the unrighteous." Professor Bullfrog, nephew of the late explorer, said he believed the ridge was the wall that enclosed the earth. He continued, "Our fathers have left us much learning, but they had not traveled far, and so we may count this a noble new discovery. We are safe for renown now, even though our labors began and ended with a single achievement. I wonder what this wall is built of. Can it be fungus? Fungus is an honorable good thing to build a wall of." Professor Snail adjusted his field glass and examined the rampart critically. Finally, he said, "The fact that it is not diaphanous convinces me that it is a dense vapor formed by the calorification of ascending moisture, dephlogisticated by refraction. A few endiometrical experiments would confirm this, but it is not necessary. The thing is obvious." So he shut up his glass and went into his shell to make a note of the discovery of the world's end and the nature of it. "Profound mind," said Professor Angleworm to Professor Field Mouse. "Profound mind. Nothing can long remain a mystery to that august brain." Night drew on apace. The sentinel crickets were posted, the glowworm and firefly lamps were lighted, and the camp sank to silence and sleep. After breakfast in the morning, the expedition moved on. About noon, a great avenue was reached, which had in it two endless, parallel bars of some kind of hard black substance, raised the height of the tallest bullfrog above the general level. The scientists climbed up on these and examined and tested them in various ways. They walked along them for a great distance, but found no end and no break in them. They could arrive at no decision. There was nothing in the records of science that mentioned anything of this kind. But at last the bald and venerable geographer, Professor Mud Turtle, a person who, born poor and of a drudging low family, had by his own native force raised himself to the headship of the geographers of his generation, said, "My friends, we have indeed made a discovery here. We have found in a palpable, compact, and imperishable state what the wisest of our fathers always regarded as a mere thing of the imagination. Humble yourselves, my friends, for we stand in a majestic presence. These are parallels of latitude." Every heart and every head was bowed, so awful, so sublime was the magnitude of the discovery. Many shed tears. The camp was pitched, and the rest of the day given up to writing voluminous accounts of the marvel and correcting astronomical tables to fit it. Toward midnight, a demoniacal shriek was heard, then a clattering and rumbling noise, and the next instant a vast, terrific eye shot by, with a long tail attached, and disappeared in the gloom, still uttering triumphant shrieks. The poor damp laborers were stricken to the heart with fright, and stampeded for the high grass in a body. But not the scientists. They had no superstitions. They calmly proceeded to exchange theories. The ancient geographer's opinion was asked. He went into his shell and deliberated long and profoundly. When he came out at last, they all knew by his worshipping countenance that he brought light. Said he, Give thanks for this stupendous thing which we have been permitted to witness. It is the vernal equinox." There were shoutings and great rejoicings. "But," said the angleworm, uncoiling after reflection, "this is dead summertime." "Very well," said the turtle. "We are far from our region. The season differs with the difference of time between the 2 points." True enough. "But it is night. How should the sun pass in the night?" "In these distant regions he doubtless passes always in the night at this hour." "Yes, doubtless that is true. But it being night, how is it that we could see him?" "It is a great mystery, I grant that. But I am persuaded that the humidity of the atmosphere in these remote regions is such that particles of daylight adhere to the disk, and it was by aid of these that we were enabled to see the sun in the dark." This was deemed satisfactory, and due entry was made of the decision. But about this moment those dreadful shriekings were heard again. Again the rumbling and thundering came speeding up out of the night, and once more a flaming great eye flashed by and lost itself in gloom and distance. The camp laborers gave themselves up for lost. The savants were sorely perplexed. Here was a marvel hard to account for. They thought and they talked, and they thought. Finally, the learned and aged Lord Granddaddy Longlegs, who had been sitting in deep study, with his slender limbs crossed and his stemmy arms folded, said, "Deliver your opinions, brethren, and then I will tell my thought, for I think I have solved this problem." "So be it, good your lordship," piped the weak treble of the wrinkled and withered Professor Woodlouse, "for we shall hear from your lordship's lips naught but wisdom." Here the speaker threw in a mess of tried, threadbare, exasperating quotations from the ancient poets and philosophers, delivering them with unction and the sound and grandeurs of the original tongues, they being from the Mastodon, the Dodo, and other dead languages. Perhaps I ought not to presume to meddle with matters pertaining to astronomy at all in such a presence as this, I who have made it the business of my life to delve only among the riches of the extinct languages and unearth the opulence of their ancient lore. But still, as unacquainted as I am with the noble science of astronomy, I beg with deference and humility to suggest that inasmuch as the last of these wonderful apparitions proceeded in exactly the opposite direction from that pursued by the first, which you decide to be the vernal equinox, and greatly resembled it in all particulars, is it not possible, nay certain, that this last is the autumnal equinox? Oh, go to bed, with annoyed derision from everybody. So the poor old woodlouse retreated out of sight, consumed with shame. Further discussion followed, and then the united voice of the commission begged Lord Longlegs to speak. He said, "Fellow scientists, it is my belief that we have witnessed a thing which has occurred in perfection but once before in the knowledge of created beings. It is a phenomenon of inconceivable importance and interest. View it as one may, but its interest to us is vastly heightened by an added knowledge of its nature, which no scholar has heretofore possessed or even suspected. This great marvel, which we have just witnessed, fellow savants, it almost takes my breath away, is nothing less than the transit of Venus."